You know, there's nothing more sexier than a person who is confident. Especially confident without having to say it. You can just tell. How they walk, how they talk. Even how they casually dress. T-shirt and jeans. Yeah, see, to me, that's confident while comfy. Jot this down and check these out. Go online to mile.today. Again, that's mile.today. MILE.today. A GNS collection.
You're listening to the E.I.T.H.R podcast with your host, D.Cal.
Good. Happy Wednesday, ladies and gentlemen. It is D.Cal here hosting the E.I.T.H.R podcast from the GNSHQ here in Northern California. Welcome to episode number 87. Hope everyone's doing well out there. I do apologize for the late start. I got to get a new battery for my remote on my car. It's one of those things where you know when you press the button to lock or unlock your alarm, to disarm or arm your alarm? Well, the remote isn't responding. So, sometimes it's instantaneously. Sometimes I gotta press the damn button, for 30 seconds. I gotta just constantly press it. Sometimes it takes a couple minutes. I'm just standing by my car, pressing the unlock, hoping that it reaches. And then there's times where it disarms, but it doesn't make the lights flash, which is fun because when I think it's disarmed and I go to unlock the door, then all of a sudden the alarm starts blaring, and I'm standing there looking like somebody that shouldn't be standing next to this car because the alarm is going off. So I'm gonna have to get a new battery for the remote. I'm trying to make it last as long as I can, but I think it's time to replace it. So I do apologize for being late on this episode, but thank you very much for everyone who is here, who is tuned in, who is tuned in live. I appreciate those who are going to be downloading the episode later. And for those who have somebody that's in need of a great podcast, I don't say so myself, I would suggest for you to direct them to the Spreaker app, Spreaker. Create a profile and find the E.I.T.H.R podcast. Like I said, we can listen to the previous 86 episodes. You can also check out our GNSETV.com, which is our internet TV channel, and you can go to the media section and I'll post up a couple of the episodes there. And if you take a look at the live stream, there's a few episodes sporadically downloaded there as well. But you can also Spotify, E.I.T.H.R, or anywhere else you get your podcast. You can refer them to the E.I.T.H.R podcast episode. So, social media, Instagram, Twitter, same handle at the E.I.T.H.R, EITHR. TikTok, you can follow us on the parent company, which is the GNS Inc. You can also look for the parent company on YouTube as well. So anyone who is new to this, we do this podcast thing with a inspirational, motivational, as well as a shout out. And so what we're going to do is I want to give myself a shout out because today we're in 2023 now. So this is probably 5 years. Today was my very first day back in the gym. Thank you. Thank you. Man, tell me about it. It was, you guys are too kind. You're too kind. Stop it. No, stop it. So, it was my very first time back in the gym hitting the weights in half a decade. And let me tell you, shit sore. But that's all right, because I didn't go as hard as I wanted to. Initially, I wanted to. But I told myself we gotta crawl before we sprint back into this thing. So it was more a nice little lather, kind of got myself back in the groove. And I feel this week is going to be baby steps, just getting back into routine of my daily at the gym. When I was hitting the gym really hard 5 years ago, I was going to the gym 3 times a day. On a bad day, you'll catch me at the gym twice. And I had a whole workout routine where I would do what's called overtraining. And if anyone knows about the Superman from Compton, aka C.T. Fletcher, you understand that he believes in overtraining. Well, my brother and I, Shifu Holmes, who teaches martial arts in Elk Grove, California, he and I would go and we would overtrain together at the gym, and it was glorious. Then after a while, our schedules switched, and so I came up with a whole ass overtraining routine for myself where I gave myself an 1,800 rep workout every single day, and it was glorious. But then things happen and circumstances change, and I had to step away from the gym, and it's like school. I haven't been back since. But for the next week, I'm going to be winding myself back into the routine of going to the gym 2 to 3 times, 7 days a week, on top of what I already got going. But hey, discipline and consistency is key to everything. So shout out to me. And for inspirational, motivational, this is something that we all can go ahead and follow. And that is this. You can't learn anything if you think you know everything. Think about that. So I'll put it to you this way. Let me go ahead and read you this post real quick while we have some time. For inspirational, motivational today. And the quote goes like this, and I follow. You learn nothing from life if you think you're right all the time. And trust me, there's a lot of people who feel that they think they're right all the time. And before we point any fingers at anybody else, make sure that your shirt is clean from any stains or any spillage, right? So I know myself, when having conversations with people, I tend to think that I'm right about what I'm speaking about. And it's taken a few years for me to understand that, hey, there's 4 different ways to end at an intersection. So if you think you're right all the time, you're never going to learn something that you don't know, even if you're learning something you do know from a different perspective. So make sure you are innocent of any guilt before you lay claim to somebody else. We're going to get into this podcast with a few things I have an opinion on. Right after the word from this sponsor is to Eat the Podcast with D.Cal.
Crush all the struggles and pressures that get in your way, big or small, minor or major. We all are fighting demons that others do not know about. But it's how you handle it that makes it look easy. Shop at Mile.today. Again, Mile, MILE.today. Mile.today.
Thank you for tuning back in with the E.I.T.H.R podcast with D.Cal here at the GNSHQ in Northern California. So, if anyone who follows American sports, the biggest sport is National Football League, also known as the NFL. And so, my team for the NFL is the Raiders. And here in Northern California, the sole NFL team now is the San Francisco 49ers. The Raiders moved to Las Vegas 2-3 years ago, and they have a beautiful stadium. Personally, I don't know if I'm ever going to attend the stadium, just because I'm a little bit bitter of them no longer playing in the Bay Area where they originated from. But they have a new head coach, Josh McDaniels, who, listen, you can do your own research on the background of this guy, but legal tampering, as they called it in the NFL during the offseason, players are able to negotiate with teams and nothing can become officially official until free agency begins, so on and so. There's a whole thing with it. But the quarterback for the Vegas Raiders for the past 9 seasons was E.I.T.H.R, who's no longer with the team. He's now with the New Orleans Saints, which is perfect because given his Christian background, I feel the Saints, E.I.T.H.R, quarterback, it's a great story, and you can kind of tie all kinds of theories and analogies to that franchise. And in my opinion, he's a great quarterback. People would argue because he hasn't won any playoff games, so on and so forth. So the disconnect with Carr and some fans is his resume doesn't have any quality wins into the postseason. Other people would sit back and say, well, he hasn't really had competent coaching and competent players around him. And when he did have those things at the same time, the team excelled. Now, the first time the Raiders made it to the playoffs, he was injured the game before, so he couldn't play. So he hasn't won. And then one time we did go to the playoffs, we lost to the Cincinnati Bengals, who eventually lost in the Super Bowl to the Los Angeles Rams a few years ago. Then Josh McDaniels comes in to take reign of the team. We got a number 1 receiver who was Carr's teammate in college at Fresno State. So naturally, on paper, the team got better because you had a bona fide, arguably the best wide receiver in the National Football League. The team fell backwards. Okay, great. Carr's gone. So everyone who didn't like the man is rejoicing because now we have a chance to get a real quarterback. And what do? We get the quarterback from the San Francisco 49ers, Jimmy Garoppolo, which a lot of people would sit back and say is a lateral move. It's not an improvement. It's not a deprovement, right? It's not progress. It's not regress. It's a lateral move. But Jimmy G was with McDaniels when they were in the New England Patriots lineup. So there's some familiarity there. So he knows the coach knows him. Maybe there's a great relationship where they can communicate, where Carr and McDaniels did not have that going for themselves. Okay, great. Then they get another wide receiver from the New England Patriots. Anyone who follows football, if you remember when the Las Vegas Raiders beat the New England Patriots in Las Vegas, Jacoby, I can't even remember his name, but he's the wide receiver who allegedly threw the lateral that was picked up by Chandler Jones and ran for a touchdown, which gave the Raiders the win. So we got him. So we got a bona fide number 2 wide receiver, allegedly. A quarterback's best friend is the running game. It's the rushing game. So what do? We franchise tag the running back, Josh Jacobs, who was the leading rusher in the NFL. A quarterback's safety net, his relief valve, his bail me out of any tough situation is the tight end. We had Darren Waller, who, depending on where you see Darren Waller, easily top 3 tight end in the National Football League. He just got married to Las Vegas Aces point guard Kelsey Blum, who I believe they just won a WNBA championship. So they just got married. Why am I giving you this whole background? Okay, well, we just understood what happened with Carr. Okay, we realized that Josh Jacobs is pissed off because he got franchise tagged versus the contract that he was looking to get. And on top of that, we got a quarterback that doesn't really improve anything. Plus, you got rid of arguably a top 3 tight end. What did McDaniels do? He traded Darren Waller to the New York Giants. Now, the Giants got significantly better because Waller is most likely going to be the number 1 target for Daniel Jones, who plays for the Giants in New York. But why would you get rid of, obviously, one of the top threats in a passing game to your offense? Well, rumor was that Darren Waller was not a fan of Josh McDaniels all season last year. Waller was injured, allegedly, where he missed most of the season. And there was talks of him in pursuing a music career or doing things outside the field. Fine, whatever. But with that, there was apparently some turmoil behind the scenes within the locker room of the tight end and the head coach. Naturally, that stuff's not going to come to the public because I'm sure they have some non-disclosure agreements they sign in their contracts where they don't talk about what goes on in-house. But you can obviously tell there was a relationship that wasn't there with the coach and the tight end. So we got traded to New York. Everyone's like, what the fuck? Like, why are you doing this, right? Well, Kelsey Plum, Darren Waller's, newlywed wife, someone had made a mention about how Waller was traded. No one could figure out why he was traded, so on and so forth. And Kelsey retweeted it with a comment and said, probably because he didn't get invited to the wedding. So, the theory, Waller and McDaniels didn't have a good relationship. They probably were butting heads. They didn't see eye to eye. They had 2 different directions in which they believed the team should be going. And because of that rift, rumor was McDaniels leaked at the Combine, which is kind of like a, for those who don't know, an area where coaches and scouts and general managers go, and think of it as like a glorified auction where college players and people try out to impress scouts and GMs for draft status and possible positions in the NFL. Well, at the Combine, the rumor is that's where McDaniels leaked that Waller wasn't going to be what it's something because he's getting married. That was private. Waller didn't want people knowing. He seems to be a very private individual, especially with his past of issues and things that he's dealing with. So he kind of wanted to keep that secret, which I can understand that. My thing is the coach leaked it because fuck you. Is probably what the coach was thinking. So you don't want to play for me? You don't want to be here with me? You don't want to do what I say? Okay. So yeah, he's not here because he's getting married. I'm going to do something that you don't want me to do because fuck you, that's why. My theory, he did that intentionally so that way Waller would respond in a fashion that would justify him going to the owner, Mark Davis, and say, look, we got to get rid of Waller. I'm trading him. His attitude stinks. He's this, he's that, he's the other. That's how I see it happening. I'm going to do something that you don't want me to do to make you upset. So you do respond in a way that makes me look like the good guy for getting rid of you and justifying making the team better. Josh McDaniel is now the captain of Team Petty. I mean, he is straight up Tom Petty for real. I mean, Petty White. This motherfucker is Petty White. I just couldn't, I can't think of anyone that would do something like that I would want as my head coach. Because for me, what that sends to me, if I was a player, what that would tell me is, okay, I can't trust this dude. I have no trust. Because even if we don't get along, something private in my life that I want to keep secret, I want to keep out of the public. You told? I'm not going to sit back and say that Waller has a reason to do anything to this man, but I am going to sit back and say, if Waller were to have done something to this man, I really couldn't get mad at him for doing it. Because it's you provoked this. You did something you knew was going to get me to react a certain type of way. And I think because McDaniels comes from the New England Patriots, which is a Bill Belichick type of situation, he wants everyone to know no one is safe and anyone's job is expendable. Nobody here is secure, except for me, the GM, and the owner. Anybody can get rid of. And I think that's a clear message he wants to send. The problem is when disciples of Bill Belichick start acting like Bill Belichick, that shit backfires quick. Bill Belichick is a very tough love, monotone, close to the chest type of head coach. But Bill Belichick's also been coaching since the 80s, 90s. So he has some decades underneath him and some resume to back it up. McDaniels does not. Jay-Z once said, people will attempt to emulate success, but they don't want to emulate the work to succeed. McDaniels wants to act like Belichick, but he doesn't have the resume as Belichick. So he's force-feeding his methods on this team. My opinion, it's going to backfire on him again. Because the first time he was a head coach was with the Denver Broncos, a rival for the Raiders. And that didn't work out for him. He got fired. So all these moves are for him and the general manager, who also comes from New England. So at this point, for everybody who wanted to blame Derek Carr for this, that, and the other, listen, these moves are strictly on the head coach. These are his people he's picking. These are his people he's putting in position. This is all on him. And I firmly believe, ending this conversation right now about Josh McDaniels, this is going to let everyone know that the problem was not the person we got rid of. The problem is the person we could not. And that's the head coach. Kind of want to give you guys, moving on from that, what's new with the GNS Inc. So, you guys are aware of the GNS ETV, which is the streaming television channel for the company where we're putting our content, so on and so forth. In the next couple of weeks, we are going to start doing The World Update episodes with Kelsey. No, not Kelsey Plum, not Waller's wife, but a different Kelsey, Miss Kelsey Martin. And that is something we're going to be doing on the podcast. That's also something we're going to be putting out on the channel as well. So please, please, please make sure you guys check that out. I remember a year or two ago when I had the idea about it, it was going to be more of an encouraging, uplifting thing. So we're going to start talking about things that are locally in Northern California and throughout the state. And then we're going to eventually expand out throughout the country of the United States of America, North America, South America, and across the ocean. So anybody, if you have something good that you would like for us to give you a shout out on the podcast, a shout out on the world update, email me, mrgns at thegnsinc.com. MRGNS at THEGNSINC. The other thing we're going to start doing, and I got this idea, there's a lot of influence on social media. And there's a lot of people on social media who are getting influenced because they just love the attention. And there's other people who I feel as an influence who give very good content and information. The purpose of this is to create a discussion, a healthy discussion, a productive discussion, a discussion where even if the two sides do not see eye to eye, at least you have a platform to speak. What I'm going to start doing is reaching out to people who I feel have opinions and perspectives that are very enlightening, thought-provoking, and something that can create a conversation, not just with my circle, but within your circle as well. So I need you guys to be on the lookout in the media section of the GNS ETV for influencers who I feel are people that the world need to hear from. And there's going to be a gamut of different individuals that I think we all can relate to. And when I say a gamut, let me be less dramatic. I'm thinking about like 3 to 5 different people. So there's going to be just some information for people to think about. Some funny, some off the cuff, some serious, some kind of like, what the fuck was that? A little bit of everything. But I think this is a great way for them to get exposure on a platform that they normally would not have exposure to, and a reach to people inside your homes and on your devices when you subscribe to this channel. And that's just going to get them followers as well. So it's going to be like a relationship to where we help each other, because that's kind of what I'm all about. So make sure you guys be on the lookout for that. On Twitter, you can follow the GNS Entertainment. And on Instagram, you can follow the GNS Entertainment branch, which is the way it sounds, GNS Entertainment. But at the N is MNT in entertainment. There is no E in mint in entertainment. So if you do that, that'll be awesomely great. That way you can also keep in mind or stay up to date with any new content with the page, or you can also do a subscription on the, not a subscription, like a newsletter on the channel as well. That way when new content comes about, you also will get notified with that. The people who have the GNS HQ, this building, they are in the process of renovating some new office spaces, and they're also in the process of buying property. So if anyone's looking for an office space, musicians, entertainers, somebody who wants to get into the film industry, and you want a place where you have 24-hour access to your office space, this is going to be the place to do it. So I'm going to be uploading their information on the GNS ETV. It's going to be in the stream, the watch live stream of what we have for the channel. And there's also going to be set in the VODs, which is video on demand sections. So if you scroll for it, you'll see it right there. Okay. So if you're in the process of knowing somebody or yourself in Northern California, and they do have places throughout the country as well. So when you go and you subscribe to the channel and you see their quote unquote commercial, you'll be able to link up with it. And, you know, it's all about helping out. So that'd be greatly appreciated if you guys could do that. Now, what I want to do, this bothers me. So there was an article that I read. And again, many people don't read these articles, so this is probably going to be new to some folks. But there was a ex-employee in the food industry who used to claim tables as reserved when he was working so he wouldn't be that busy. So, in a nutshell, what was going on was whenever this individual was working, especially during busy times, probably lunch rush, maybe early dinner rush. In the article, the person says when he and a manager that didn't like him, and I can't imagine why the fuck the manager wouldn't like this person, but whenever they would get into a disagreement, what he would do was he would call from a no ID, so he would block the number, call the restaurant, make a reservation for a party of 8, party of 9, party of 12. And he would let them know exactly what food it was that they were trying to order from this restaurant. Actually, take that back. That person didn't do it. This individual would just call the restaurant to make the reservations. And so now you have this big ass table of 8, 9, 12 seats that are reserved. You'll have the sign on it that says reservation. So whenever somebody decided to come in, a large group, well, that table was taken because it's being placed on hold for somebody. But the reservations would never show. And the manager could not figure out, why are these people calling, making reservations, and never ending up at the restaurant? They never caught on that it was this employee doing it. And they said this is what they would do whenever they were mad. Mainly, this is what they would do whenever they were trying to avoid having to work during a busy time. Another person in the food industry who did something similar is the one who would make the reservation and pre-schedule food so that way the cooks knew exactly what was being made and the time to prep it and to cook it, so by the time the group got there, everything was streamlined for them. Well, that particular manager, again, no one was showing. Why is no one showing up for these reservations? And the second person in the article stated they like doing it so much because the policy was whenever there were reservations made and any food that was prepared that did not get served, it went to the staff. Listen, as clever as that shit sounds, being the employee, that shit is annoying and dirty from the perspective of the employer. Imagine your partner calling and saying, you guys are having guests over for dinner. Make a little extra something for so-and-so and them. And they cook. And the people don't show. And you tell your partner, oh, I really don't know what happened. They tell me they were on their way. I don't know. But you know, it's okay though. I'll just take some food tomorrow for lunch. You made your partner cook extra, knowing damn well they didn't want to cook. You made them cook extra food so you could take it to your work spouse or to your BFF at work or somebody else. I want you to imagine being a manager of a location. You got to account for that loss because the food that you prepped that didn't get paid for, that's money that business is now fucking losing. Are you serious right now? I couldn't do it. Once I figured out who it was, I was trying to find a way to make your ass pay for all that food because that's deliberate, right? I think what bothers me second most behind all that is the fact people complain about not having enough work to do. Then you have the nerve to bitch about all the work you have to do. Now, granted, there's always going to be circumstances at your job that you just don't like. I understand. I remember as a host and a busser, sometimes the waiter or the waitresses, they may work more than they needed to. Sometimes the people that you're dealing with were extra. I don't feel like being bothered. I understand. There's always going to be circumstances. You know, the food, the service, the weather, the kind of day you had. You don't want to be bothered with people. Yo, check it out. It makes all the sense in the world, man. I understand. We all have those moods, right? But I think what a lot of people don't grasp, these businesses is stimulating your economy. That restaurant is keeping you employed so you can stay with a roof over your head, or a cell phone on your hip, or food in your refrigerator, or that room you're renting out. It allows you to pay for the services that you got, right? It allows for you to be able to use whatever it is that you use for your day. Not only that, but it's the back end shit, right? It's the chef, it's the cooks, it's everybody involved. The more this person did it, the more food they wasted, the more money this company had to shell out. So here's what happens with that from a business perspective. This is going to be a very small scale, but on a larger scale, it adds up. Because prices are going to go up. You now have to spend more money because you have to make up for the food that was, quote unquote, ultimately wasted. You now made your crew burn through more gas, more electricity than they needed to in the kitchen. You now are going to be wasting more resources, doing more dishes and utensils. I know that sounds like no big deal to many people who are not in the food industry. But if you work on tips and you got a reservation of 8, 9, 12, and they pre-ordered X amount of hundreds of dollars worth of food, you now have people who are expecting a certain income based on that tab. And you just screwed them out of that. Is every place like that? Oh, of course not. But in many places, at least here in California, a lot of folks work off tips because their hourlies ain't really shit after taxes, right? So, because you were mad, you decided to stick it to the manager by fucking off the expenses. And I get it. Again, you don't care. You were upset. It doesn't matter. It felt great. Hell, some of your fellow coworkers may have been in on it too, and you guys just thought it was oh so funny. But nobody laughs when that food comes out of their refrigerator. And I'm almost certain that the cooks were not in on that meal prep. I'm almost certain they were not in with the idea of doing that shit. I'm kind of almost willing to bet my life on that. And again, now you got management running around doing stuff. So I understand you were upset. But folks, I'm trying to explain to you guys, man, you have to do your best, as frustrating as it may be. You got to do your best, man, to keep in mind what takes you a second to get into can take you a lifetime to get out of. And that is God's honest truth. Because that, we complain about work until one day we don't have work. Not a day off, but terminated. We got to think about it. You got to think. And again, I know many people don't do shit like that because many people don't have experiences like that. I understand that. But having been in the food industry, I think this is foul. And when I read the article and I read that they were fired, I was kind of like, good. You don't get no sympathy from me. None. Because there were other people who had to do that because you just had a moment. Right? So if you're going to get somebody back at your job that you don't like, make sure that it mainly fucks with that person, not everyone else. Because I'm almost certain there's a lot of people who don't have sense. And if they found out that you make them do 2, 3, 4 times more work because you were mad at somebody that ain't got nothing to do with them, that's a whole nother situation you probably don't want to be a part of. Keep that in mind. Just keep that in mind. So, we're going to wrap this episode up. I want to keep it shorter than normal. I do appreciate you guys spending the time. Thank you very much for everybody who has been listening to the downloads of the previous episodes. Next week, I am going to be doing a new segment on Mondays. I'll let you know more about that on the next episode, which is What's Your Mile Fridays. And that is for anybody who has an obstacle that they want to overcome, a difficulty that they want to simply accomplish. What are you making look easy? What's your thing? Follow us on social media at the E.I.T.H.R on Instagram, on Twitter, on TikTok. You can follow us at the GNS Inc. Make sure you subscribe to GNS ETV, YouTube, the GNS Inc. I do appreciate you guys and your support and your dedication to this podcast. We're going to see you next time on episode number 88. It's your boy D. Cal. You guys be good. And we out.